Fitchburg Historical Commission's meeting January 30th, 2025. I'd like to now call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and visual recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask that anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating your name, city, and residence. At this time, I'd like to ask that all electronic devices be placed in silent mode. If I can find mine. And let's see. I'd like to have a roll call. Andy Lepasti, present. Don Ostrowski's here. Charles Stornamello is here.
Present.
And myself, Keith Shino, Chair of the Commission. We do have a quorum, so let's get started. I think we're in good shape here. First item on our agenda is any public comment regarding the Commission? Hearing none, let's move forward. Second item on the agenda, review and approve minutes for the November 21st, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes for the November 21st meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any comments? Motion has been presented and seconded. Do I call for a vote on this? All in favor, say aye.
What are we voting on? Aye.
The minutes approval?
Okay.
Sorry. Any nays? Abstentions? That's unanimous approval of the minutes. Thank you. Just a kind of brief update on preservation activities in the city. And let me see, I'm trying to, want to share a screen here. We have some information on kind of starting this new year. You can see on the screen just kind of an update on some of the projects that are kind of active preservation products within the city projects. Obviously, the public library, which has had its groundbreaking this fall, major renovation, historic building, kind of modernist architecture. Somewhat unfortunate that the children's library that preceded the current building shown in this image had to be taken down for program reasons. But this last month I was able to stop in and had a brief tour of the facility guided by the project superintendent. And just a view on the interior of it, obviously with all the stacks removed, we can kind of see the elegance of this contemporary structure, now roughly over 50 years old now, I believe, or pretty close to that. And the project superintendent that worked on many buildings was in kind of awe of the construction, the finesse and the original design and the original contractors that built this in their ability to use reinforced concrete in this way that was very in a very delicate kind of fashion. So being a kind of retired architect myself, I I've always been in kind of wonder and seeing the construction of this and kind of amazed by some of the construction. These kind of upside down pyramids for the ceilings of the library are, and kind of verified by the project superintendent, are extremely well finished, hardly seeing any formwork at all on the bottom sides of these. And the concrete slab itself for all of these structures is only 3 inches thick of reinforced concrete. So it's kind of a tribute to the skills of the contractors back in the 1960s and the kind of beauty of that particular project. Moving on to the B.F. Brown project, the Academy Street School, and the Stables building. This is obviously nearing completion. I've just, our commission has just heard that there will be a review by Mass Historical Commission for the proposed National Register Historic District called the Academy Street School District, which includes the B.F. Brown School project or building, which you can see it's the renovations and restorations have moved along very well. We can see that the old Academy Street School is coming along fine. This is the back of B.F. Brown. And the Stables building, the city stable building, with a lot of its renovations. Part of this Academy Street district is also the High Street dry-laid granite wall, which is quarried granite from our city quarry up on Rollstone Hill. This is just one of the many, many examples of the stonework in the city, and this is part of the proposed National Register district, the stone wall included within it, which is just behind the stables. Obviously, the school is coming along. A lot of the exterior trim and roofing and repointing has been done. Some of the windows are replaced on this side of the building, and some of the detail of the decorative supports around the mansard roof and new copper flashing and repair of the slate, et cetera, is coming along very well. And kind of lastly, this is the Iver Johnston Mill Complex on River Street. It's come before the commission for reviews. It's also going for National Register designation and using, and it looks like their project, including these two main front buildings of the Iver Johnston Bicycle Firearms Complex, is they're hoping to start construction perhaps late this spring. So another hopefully project moving forward in the city. So that's just kind of I thought it would be just kind of nice to start out the year kind of taking a recap of some of the projects we've been kind of looking at. Next item on the agenda is annual election for chair and secretary for the commission. The first of the year, we nominations for these come back up, and we'd like to do that at this moment. Do I hear any nominations for chair for the Historical Commission?
Yeah, I nominate you.
Thank you, Charles. Any other nominations? Okay. I'll reluctantly accept your nomination. I'd like to pass this on at some point in time. Also for secretary for the commission.
I nominate Andy.
Nomination for Andrew Lepasti. Do I hear any other nominations for secretary? We have 2 unopposed nominations for chair and secretary. Like to call a roll call vote for accepting your nominations. Andy, do you approve the nominations?
Yes, I do.
And Don?
Approval? Approving?
Yes.
Yes, I approve.
Charles?
Yes, I approve.
And I accept also and approve Andy's. So we shall proceed. Thank you. And we'll try to do a good job. Let me know when I can do better. And let's have a good year with this. Moving on to item number 5, review process to study the creation of additional historic districts in the city of Fitchburg. Maybe, Don, you had some thoughts on this or suggestions, or do you want to kind
Well,
of
I
lead
think
this?
we have some people here who have some thoughts on it and would like to be heard from in the audience, the Prospect Hill Historic District, because these are people who live on Prospect Hill, and there seems to be a groundswell of interest in making it into a historic district.
Okay.
John, can you get closer to your microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just told you all.
No,
Yeah.
Ren tells me the same thing. Get closer to your microphone.
Great. Let me kind of give a little preview on this. Obviously, the city has a lot of great historical assets and a lot of great architecture that the commission and I personally think it's such a treasure that we have here. Historic districts kind of fall into a couple of different categories, or maybe a few different types of categories, and these can amount to surveys and kind of understanding values of things. Individual properties or sites or historic sites or buildings or both can be designated as a historic building or a historic district. And there are different types of historic districts that are kind of officially recognized. One is a National Register Historic District that recognizes the, as kind of a national landmark, if you will, individual buildings or individual districts within the city. And the city of Fitchburg has a few National Register Historic Districts. One is the Monument Park National Register Historic District that includes pretty much, it's all on the north side of Main Street, including Monument Park, the building to the left that used to be the site of the Trinitarian Church, an abolitionist church back in the 19th century. Later became Central Hardware, and that church was renovated or almost rebuilt into a commercial building at the time. The armory behind that building, the old post office building, the current courthouse building, the old courthouse building, and Monument Park itself. Going from memory, the Christ Church property, that whole block of land there, and the old YMCA building, which is just to the right of Christ Church on Main Street. That is in the National Register Historic District. There's also the Moran Square Historic District, which was recently designated in 2018, I believe. That includes Moran Square area, going up to include one of the old Simon Saw buildings up off of North Street, the Willow Street apartment building that used to be a boiler works that would happen to be moved back from being right on Main Street to where it is by John Moran of Moran Square designation or history. The Moran building itself, which is the granite building on the corner of Lunenburg and Summer Street. The Spanish-American War Monument, going across the street, the fire station, going up Lunenburg Street, the two yellow mansard roof buildings that were the Sylvanus Sawyer buildings, quite an industrialist and inventor in his own time. Then including the old fire station at the beginning of Summer Street, the Syndicate block, which is the old Harper Furniture, Tarbox Furniture, and used to be the Brown Bag Filling Machine Company, which was its original purpose and use, and the Fitchburg Plumbing Building, which was the Fitchburg Machine Works, and also started by Sylvanus Sawyer, and he had a munitions and armament company that he started during the Civil War time at that period. So that's a National Register district also. I'm trying to think if there's additional National Register district. There may be another. These are recognized. They go through a process going through the review by the State Historical Commission and then sent on to the National Park Service that reviews the National Register nominations and gives final approval for that. So that's a National Register historic individual buildings or district type of nominations. There's also, in Massachusetts, there are local historic districts that are developed by our own communities in Massachusetts, and local historic districts are created by first setting up a study committee by the city council of the city would set up a study committee to study a national or a local historic district. And local historic districts are generally set up to control renovations and future development within the local historic district by a local historic district commission. Our historical commission is also the local historic district commission for the Monument Park local historic district. The Monument Park local historic district versus the National Register historic district is a little bit different in that it's pretty much controlled by or reviewed by this commission. The Monument Park local historic district, the only local historic district currently in Fitchburg, was started in, I believe the study committee was started in probably 1974 or 1975. The study committee reviewed the various properties and spoke with many of the property owners. Most of the properties were city-owned or state or federally owned properties, except for the church and the YMCA property. But the Monument Park local historic district's a little bit different boundary than the National Register Monument Park district, as it includes the library and I believe includes the old Historical Society building on Grove Street. That might be included in the National Register district also. It's a little bit different boundaries, but our commission, acting as a local Historic District Commission has design review, has a set of regulations that we follow for a design review process for any changes within that particular local historic district. Primarily exterior changes and primarily changes to anything that's visible from the public way or the roadways, the public coming by it. So that's kind of a maybe a little bit too detailed explanation, but kind of talks about the different types of historic districts that there are.
You might also mention our brochure.
Yes, we have a we have a brochure. I don't have copies of it at the moment, that we publicized last May that shows historic districts and historic areas in the downtown area.
Is that on your website?
It is going to be on our website. The Historical Society has copies of it. City Hall has copies of it. I should have brought some with us here. That's kind of a combination of National Register districts, local historic districts, and historic areas that are going for National Register nomination, which include the Academy Street District that we just saw pictures of, the B.F. Brown and the Academy Street School, et cetera. They're going for National Register nomination. Obviously, the Upper Common historic area is not a National Register historic district yet, although it is in the nomination process or review process by the state for National Register designation. That includes a lot of Main Street buildings. Currently, in the proposal for the Upper Common District, includes from currently the library building going across the street, not including the old Trinitarian site, so kind of skip one building, both sides of the street going up Main Street to the Unitarian Church. Some of the projects just, I believe, across the street from it, and going up Main Street to School Street, including the old School Street School. This is a National Register nomination, partly funded by the Fitchburg State University, and partly because of their initial thought of renovating the theater project across the street, and perhaps using some of the funding using tax credit funding. National Register projects or National Register districts have the ability to, for any renovations and additions to properties in National Register or recognized buildings or sites, have the ability to get tax credit funding, which allows any from 20 to 40% tax credit reimbursement for recognized and approved renovation projects. These do not include residential projects, but they're usually commercial projects. One good example of that is the Moran Square apartment building projects that include the old brown bag filling company building or the Tarbox furniture building, which is a historic building in the Moran Square Historic District, and the old fire station building, and the subsequent infill project for apartments between those two historic buildings. That building project, being part of a National Register historic building or district, was able to use tax credit funding which is a tool that developers or property owners might be able to use. It does not, it has to be a commercial project or it has to be for-profit funding in it or investors in it somehow. So for individual residential projects, a national register is a great designation, but it doesn't get you any funding, nor does a local historic district get you any funding in many cases. But somewhat of the differences of why you might be going for different designations. So any questions? I'd kind of talk long enough, and maybe what some of your questions might be. If you want to just go to the podium where the mic is, that would be helpful.
Do you have the camera switched on so that the cameras are picking up?
Yep, he'll get that.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Michael McLaughlin. I live at 80 Bond Street in Fitchburg, and this is our neighborhood.
Cool.
I have some questions. I guess maybe I'm just going to kind of kick it off a little bit. Our neighborhood has kind of recently come together. We all own old homes. You're all familiar with the Prospect Street area. And, there's been a lot of changes occurring up there recently. So we all kind of thought it would be a good idea to maybe come together and, really take a look at the preservation of the neighborhood and its architecture. Everybody's probably aware of, the grand homes that used to be up there. And, we're trying to preserve what's there. It's our neighborhood. We love our homes. They're a lot of work. And, so we just, through Dawn, thought we would come down to kind of learn a little bit about the process. I know nothing about it, but from a standpoint of, what's designated historical and how we go about proceeding, maybe you could help us out with some questions as to, what's the difference between national and local? What are the benefits in the pitfalls? What protection that it provides the neighborhood and the structures, now and in the future and all that. I think this is probably more of a educational visit than anything. Some of the neighborhood has some really, really deep knowledge of the history of the houses, who owned them, and their history. So I guess some of the questions, the benefits, the downside, and maybe you could kind of help guide us so we can understand and look at how to proceed to preserve a nice little pocket of Fitchburg. So thank you.
Sure. I think I applaud all of you for thinking about this and how it works. Many cities have local historic districts, and it's pretty much it comes from the property owners, and it needs to have obviously not 100% support, but it needs to have a strong support from the neighborhood or the district that is created in it. There is a process, kind of a formal process, but I think this is kind of a beginning of talking with yourselves and with your neighbors, of understanding the heritage that your properties have. I think, I personally believe that, the Prospect Hill area is certainly ripe for some type of designation like this. And it would be, it is a kind of an official recognition of kind of the value of a certain district, or, the homes or the particular buildings that are in an area. and that the property owners are aware of this. And it can obviously bring kind of recognition. It brings a local historic, brings some measure of control, I guess you might say, on how changes are made within a particular district. And I think everybody needs to be kind of aware of kind of how this process works. I know I was involved with the kind of the preservation in Worcester for many years. I had an architectural practice in the city. And the city of Worcester, which is very similar in a lot of ways to Fitchburg, a little bit bigger, quite a bit bigger in some ways, but a similar industrial background and areas. The city of Worcester has a few local historic districts that are primarily in residential areas, Crown Hill area and the Massachusetts Avenue local historic district. If you want to go on Worcester's website, you might be able to find their local historic district bylaws. We're looking at the Worcester Historical Commission. Other cities, I believe, I'm trying to remember if Leominster has a local historic district. They might be in their main downtown area, it might have a local historic district like we do here in Fitchburg. Lunenburg might, and I'm trying to, I haven't done research on this recently, so we could come up with some answers to these questions of what other local cities. Many cities have local historic districts, and they're created by local citizen groups like perhaps yourselves, looking to find some way of kind of recognition and for the quality and some of the history and heritage of your particular area and neighborhood. And we'd be happy to kind of help you and work with you kind of through the process. It should be a long process for everybody understanding it and getting as many property owners involved in it as you can. This is pretty much you're talking with your neighbors. You know, how big is a district? What should it include? There have been surveys of the Prospect Hill area, historic surveys that are in our state archives. They're easily accessible on a website the state maintains, and I can share the website. Maybe if we could get maybe we could pass around an attendance piece, and if you want to add your email addresses on there, we could send you a copy of particular websites that you can go to that actually show the Prospect Hill area and the amount of historic survey work that's already been done. A couple different surveys have been done of that area. You might find histories of your own house or building within that.
One of their houses now on Macris? Mike's house?
Yeah, I could take a look at that if you'd like.
What's your address, Mike? We'll pull up your house.
80 Bond Street. I probably won't be on it.
Oh, you guys
You've checked it already?
You guys have been on there before?
Yeah, we got the copy. I copied. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you're familiar with it already.
I don't have yours or Dave's.
Okay, so you've seen, the state has a survey form that the city of Fitchburg has been involved in for many years, and it's called the Macris list. It's Massachusetts Historic Resources or something like that. Sure, go ahead.
Tim Hillman, 81 View Street. I have a group email of everybody here,
Okay.
which I could send to you as the chair.
Sure, that would be great.
That would be great. What is the process, in order to get the process started for like local registration, we file a petition with the city council or we file it with you all?
It's probably jointly, but it does go through the city council. And you may have seen the website on the Mass Historical site where I can get that information on you. There is a guide booklet, if you will, for establishing or reviewing if you would like to start a local historic district. It kind of sets all of the timelines, the involvement, and so forth with it. Have you seen that one yet?
I have.
Okay. So it's following that, and it does go before city council, and to my memory, the first action is taken that they will establish a local historic district study committee, as was done with the Monument Park local historic district. There's a study committee, and it include many of you from the community, with the proposed district, so you would be involved in it. I believe some membership probably from this commission itself might be involved. And there is a set of outline guides of things that the study committee will do and come up with a final report. They will report back to the city council with your formal report and which time action can be taken to actually establish through city ordinance creating a local historic district. So it is a process. It probably will take a few years to do it, if done correctly, and reaching out to your neighbors, establishing what the boundaries of such a district would be, et cetera. So it's a pretty well set out process. And once you send that, I'll send out that website also to all of
Thank you.
people on that. So.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Question. So step one, petition to city council, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Step two.
that's the official. I think there would be obviously some local groundwork before that, but just creating this and, deciding what it.
Then the council will recommend it to a committee?
They will, if they approve it, the petition will be to start a historic district study committee, to my knowledge.
Who forms that?
I think we would all be involved in recommending who the study committee members are. I think we would have that pretty well worked out before we come to city council. But I think speaking with I believe this is in two different precincts, maybe this Prospect Street, part of 3 and 4 local wards, or?
Prospect, yeah. One side is 3 and one is 4.
Yeah, so I think speaking with your local ward councilors and getting them on board with this so that they're actually representing you at council, speaking with your councilors at large, and having the city council on board with this kind of ahead of time. This just in the education of what are you trying to do, and kind of making sure that as many people can be represented in the process as possible. It is like the Monument Park Local Historic District. When there are changes, or as an example, in the Monument Park, when there are proposed changes to exterior conditions of buildings within that jurisdiction. The building inspector would have knowledge of what the district is, and when there is a building permit pulled for a change to a building or a new building built or renovations to a building, that they would direct the applicant to the local historic district commission for a review process. There's an application to, if you wanted to put up an Amazon building in a particular site on Prospect Street, or if you, that would be new construction within the site. If you wanted to demolish a building within the local historic district, there would be a set of guidelines that the study committee would help to set up, exactly what the role of the historic district commission would be, what the design guidelines would be, but in general, there's kind of a standard setup of what it would be. Individual historic district commissions have, or the individual districts can have different things that they focus on. It can be, major construction, obviously a new addition, removal of certain types of trim or replacements of windows or replacements of siding or putting vinyl siding on, or some local historic commissions get very detailed, including paint companies and perhaps even paint color. Some historic district commissions will kind of not be quite that detailed, but kind of major pieces. These are things to kind of discuss within the study committee of how detailed it should be. I'm going from memory from what I understand about the commission. So this is kind of the process. Once the study committee is set up, you'll kind of set the parameters. You'll set obviously what the boundaries of the district would be, and having an education process within the district and the homeowners and business and community, property owners, so that everyone kind of understands what the process is. I'm sure that City Council, to approve a historic district, will want feedback from everybody within the proposed district, and doesn't mean that 100% of people or property owners have to buy into it, but certainly a large majority would be needed to kind of push your district through. It's an ideal district. The Prospect Hill area is magnificent, and this is a tool for you, the property owners, and for the city to kind of maintain the value. Historic districts in general increase the value of people's properties. There is data behind this. Generalization I'm making, but there are some restrictions on it also. So it's people kind of recognizing the heritage, and I'm sure most of you were attracted to your properties by the magnificence of the architecture and the buildings, and your neighbors also. And this is a process that can kind of help protect that.
So step one, I apologize for repeating myself. Step one, we go before council. The council will approve a study.
A study committee,
Okay.
Members of the study committee, and kind of what their purpose is, to create a report, and the report is then brought back to City Council for their consideration of creating the district. what the boundaries are, what you've done, who you've talked to, who's supporting it.
Is there a committee requirement, X amount of people, or votes required, or is it fairly loose and open?
I would have to kind of check on probably the Mass Historic guidelines on that. Might be.
Go away, hypothetically, committees form, committee goes away and does work for however long, I guess we feel it takes to, come up with enough information and proposal, right?
Yes.
And then when the committee feels the proposal is complete, it goes back to city council and says, okay, is there a timeline on it?
I don't believe there is. I don't think it ends at a certain time. It kind of depends how fast that you can kind of work on it. Whether or not, and you probably have a lot of skills within your neighborhood there, writing the report. If I think there's a lot of data in all the macro surveys that have been done on the area already. There have been recommendations for historic districts within that data saying that these areas would qualify for at least National Register and possibly local historic districts. So I think most of the macros forms are talking about National Register districts, which is fine also. It doesn't particularly give you any control over the properties, but it does give national recognition for a particular area. Local historic districts, there is design control through the local historic district commission that currently is this commission right now.
Notoriety.
National is notoriety.
You can impose conditions and criteria.
Local is that national is national recognition, like a national park almost. National also affects if there are any public funds, state or federal, being used on a particular project. Usually private residential don't have any state or federal funding involved in that. So the state or federal government would have some oversight of saying you can't change that or whatever. So in like our Monument Park, National Register Historic District, the old courthouse building is in the National Register Historic District. If a developer were to do anything to that particular building and wanted to use tax credit funding to do the renovation work on that, which is obviously federal tax credit to it, they would have to follow the guidelines of National Park Service in the preservation work of that particular building. If that courthouse were sold to a private individual and they're using no state or federal funding on it, they're just using their private funding for whatever use done there, they can do whatever they want with it, including tearing it down.
Yeah, I think
Except it's in the national, the building happens to be in the local historic district,
Right.
which we govern, and demolition would have to come before our commission, and we would probably deny it.
So, first of all, there's no demolition delay ordinance in Fitchburg. So if someone wants to demolish a building,
We have 9 minutes.
then they just get a license from the building commissioner and they demolish it. One of the objections we've heard to making places, areas, historic districts is, we don't want anybody telling us we can't demolish our building. No. Well, with a National Historic District, No, no one's going to tell you that. It's matter of prestige, and as Keith pointed out, you can get tax credits for, commercial. With a local historic district, that may run into some problem with residents in the neighborhood who think, I don't want anybody to control what I do with my house. Because there is a measure of oversight, which could either be the historical commission or a separate commission set up to have public hearings on any significant changes to particular residences. In some cases, the people of a neighborhood do want that. They want that oversight for whatever reason. And I called up the town of Newbury, Massachusetts, is in the process of doing local historic district. And I first of all, they described the process, which is a local historic district begins with a meeting of property owners and residents to find out what they think. If there is interest in creating a district that is a local historic district, the town forms a study committee. In this case, it would be the city council, to investigate and prepare a report documenting the viability and recommendations of a possible local historic district. A study report is created to report on findings and presented at an official public hearing. The final step is passage of the historic district bylaw. And in this case, it's by 2/3 majority of the town meeting. I don't know if that applies to the city council as well.
We're going to be adjourning in about 6 minutes. So we've had a good discussion here on this. Yes, go ahead.
I know at least some of you, Jen LePan, 60 View Street, the Jennison House. I wonder if you would just say a few words about, in general, what the city's interest tends to be in considering a historic district, approving a historic district, denying a historic district. I know what our interest is as the neighborhood, but I wonder what types of value, intrinsic or explicit, you look to get out of a historic district being initiated, and what kinds of concerns you may have, generally speaking. Thanks.
I didn't quite get all of that, but
Well, I think that the city has shown that it's very interested in setting up historic districts and supporting it. As Keith pointed out, most of those are national historic districts. We do have a precedent in the local historic district of Monument Park, and Prospect Hill could be a local historic district. And let me just follow up on what a local historic district involves, at least according to the Newbury. It says it has 3 major purposes: to preserve and protect the distinctive characteristics of buildings and places significant in the history of the Commonwealth and its cities and towns; 2, to maintain and improve the settings of those buildings and places; 3, to encourage new designs compatible with existing buildings in the district. So those 3 purposes are very clear. Now, let's say, a majority of the people and residents of Prospect Hill, are they willing to put themselves under those strictures? And if so, then begin the process. I'm speaking out of turn here. I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. What I would like to do is obviously continue this discussion. If you are planning on meeting together at some point in the future, and you would like any of us to join your meeting, whatever it is, kind of talk about details, I'm sure myself and any of the others would be happy to join your group and to get into a little bit more detail what the next steps are to help with preparing a petition for a study committee, kind of looking at the big picture. What do you think boundaries are? What do big, small, et cetera? We'd be happy to work with you on this. We're here to help propagate the preservation of the city of Fitchburg as our commission's charter, if you will. So if we can help in any way, we'd be happy to meet with you.
And also, Ellen DiGeronimo is on our commission. She's not here this evening, but she's a wealth of knowledge on this as well. So I know that some of you are friends with her. I'm sure she'd love to get a phone call and talk to you about it if you have some questions about it as well.
Thank you so much. I'll next Wednesday at 5. No. Thank you so much.
Well, you know how to get a hold of us, and
At Dawn's house, too, by the way.
yes, that sounds good.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for your thoughts and interest, and we'd be happy to see where it goes.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
We went to 6:30. We went to 6:30. Not 6:30?
He needs to leave to head off to a 6:30 event.
Oh, so we have to end early.
Yeah. So what I would like to do is, for the commission, I think we are going to table some of the items on our agenda for February's meeting, which is February 27th.
Yes.
Unless I don't believe there's many items that are crucial now. One of the things that we did talk about is setting goals for the year, and I'd mentioned a few things. Does anybody have any other thoughts, goals that, obviously working with the study committee is certainly a good goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we want to facilitate that as much as we can. I will mention as part of one of our goals is to, I sent a copy of the latest draft of the demolition delay ordinance to the acting building commissioner to get his feedback.
Perhaps you and I could set up a meeting so we could meet in person, and
yes,
or anybody else who wants to join us too. In that list, we said of kind of goals. I'd like to add to it. Obviously, the.
Did you guys want to give us an email?
Yeah, he's going to.
I was going to give it.
I'll share it with everybody too. On goals, Monument Park fencing, I'm going to be hopefully meeting with the procurement officer, Mary Delaney, just talking about getting some funding for the design work and the actual work on it. We're trying to see if we can look at the molds also. Also, the Armory building itself, which is in our local historic district, is in dire need of preservation work on the outside of that building. That's a much bigger project than the fencing is, but I want to make sure that we keep that in our sights. Yes. As it's a city building. It's it's part of our city government and obviously used as a senior center, but it's certainly a strong asset of the Monument Park historic districts. And it would be a shame to see it deteriorate any further.
What's that, the Armory?
The Armory building. So that is a goal kind of added to the list I'd said before. Motion to adjourn?
One more question?
One more question.
Yeah, the Monument Park and the statue, is that going to be an ongoing discussion? Or
Moran
deadline at some point?
Statue?
Moran Square.
Yes.
Yes. That'll be ongoing discussion. There will be future design meetings with the consultant and community development and planning and ourselves and Nick Capasso from the Art Museum and probably Historical Society. I encourage you to try to attend those if you're available during those times also. I'm sure there'll be another one set up in the near future. So there are strong concerns of making sure that that design kind of keeps the integrity of Moran Square, obviously. And there's a lot of great improvements that they're proposing in that. Exactly what happens with the Spanish-American War Monument and how that's located. There's a lot of experts from different areas kind of coming in on this throughout the city besides ourselves. So and that's a good piece. So we'll keep you informed and look for your participation too. Motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So be it. We'll see you all on February 27th.